designed to encourage, empower, and educate real estate professionals by sharing best practices from business leaders that are proven winners. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and this is Calibrate Real Estate. Broadcasting from the Mile High City, thank you for tuning in to the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and I'm joined today by good friend, Rachele Maczuk from New Haven, Missouri. Rachele, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, and just a reminder for anybody that is consuming us on iTunes, make sure to pop on over to YouTube and check us out. You can actually see our smiling faces. And if you're watching YouTube, I want you to know that if you like to listen to iTunes while you're on your morning commute or you're on a jog, you can definitely listen to us and tune in on iTunes. Please leave us a review. And so without further ado, Rachele and I are really excited to announce, and this is something that's a continuation of our interview with Tara Moore, that Rachele's going to be on a panel at a conference that we're hosting here, that Calibrate Real Estate is hosting in Denver next month, well, in the next 45 days, I should say. And Rachele is going to be part of our Working Moms panel. So we're going to be talking about life as a busy working mom with two parents that are working and trying to figure out how to make sure they take care of their family. So Rachele, before we get started into that, let's talk to the audience about how we know each other, and then most importantly, how you started your career. So how did you get your start in real estate?
Sure. So I started back in 2005. I had recently purchased my first house. I was probably 19 or 20. And my agent at the time tells me that she's going to open up an office in our tiny little town of about 2,000 people. And she was looking for agents and wanted to know if I would want to join in. And so I was going to college full time. I was working at a bank part-time. And I said, why not? Nothing holding me back. So, and at that point, 2005, the market was still good. So I went to real estate school about 4 hours every evening for about a month, took my test, and held my license with her, and have never changed. I absolutely love our little company here and have a great time working in real estate in a small little town.
So you're with RE/MAX today in an area that's it's kind of a rural area of Missouri. So tell us a little bit about how big the town is that you work in and how many real estate transactions happen, because you are really in a rural setting.
We are, yes. So we're in New Haven, Missouri, which is just about 2,000 people, maybe 2,200. It's pretty small. And my family has been farming here for 3 generations. We're basically a farming community. There's a couple of industrial buildings and that here, but primarily it's farming. And so in such a small town, it's important to know different facets of real estate. So one day I might be doing residential, which is my primary, but then also I do a little bit of commercial, a lot of land, building lots, learning about development, because that is becoming a big thing again now that the market is climbing back up and getting out of the recession. So it's just a little bit of everything that you kind of have to be knowledgeable about, or be able to say, hold on, I don't know, but I'll find out.
Yeah, I think back to my experience in Laramie, Wyoming, where I went to college. Some of the realtors that I knew in Laramie, they could not be a specialist. They couldn't be a luxury agent. Luxury homes were few and far between. They couldn't only focus on residential. They really had to do a little bit of it all, do some retail leases in the downtown area, which is a pretty small downtown. They had to sell some land. They had to work in commercial. And so it really enables you to be very active in your community, because you're maybe doing Rotary, you're going to Chamber of Commerce. I mean, you're interacting with everybody and anybody, because the transaction volume is just not as large in an area like you're in. And so RE/MAX today is the company that you work with. And just help us understand, for the people who are watching on YouTube, kind of what your office setting is like. Are you right in downtown? Are you kind of out in the rural area? What's the community like? And then the local realtor I love that concept because we're in a major metropolitan area, and being a local realtor in a smaller community, I think, I mean, you're almost like the mayor, aren't you?
Gosh, no. I would never want that job, but no, we are right along basically Route 66. So we're here along the highway. We have highway visibility. Our downtown is literally a block, just, you know, the 4 streets that encompass a block, and that's our downtown. So the visibility there would not be so great, but we do have a really up and coming arts district there. The folks down there with businesses are working really hard to get that up and going again. And so there's glass blowing and a distillery and a lot of fun things to do down there. And festivals are mostly held down there, but where we see the traffic and the most visibility is here along the highway. And we're kind of a pass-through town. I kind of call it a bedroom community, that a lot of people sleep here and live here because it is so affordable, but then they travel to get to their jobs. So we are halfway through the towns of Washington and Herman, and we're right along the Missouri River. And both of those communities are larger. They offer more industry and other kinds of jobs, along with shopping and more destinations. Herman is very much known as kind of the wine district of our area. There's a lot of really good wineries there. We're known as the Rhine Valley in this area. And then Herman is, Washington is much closer to the interstate, and that goes then into St. Louis for it takes about an hour.
That's great. And so I would imagine that being a realtor in your area really requires some pretty strong relationships, right? You burn a bridge and all of a sudden you're going to lose out on business, not only from that particular person, but all their friends, all their neighbors. And, you know, so relationships are probably critical in your area.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely something that you want to treat everybody as best as possible, and you don't want to drop the ball because you don't know how many other transactions that's going to kind of parlay into. But it's a very important lesson that I learned when I was much younger from my parents, that, you know, look, we're a small community. You never know how your life and this other person's life might intersect again. And so it's important to always treat somebody with the golden rule. And it's just a little bit more evident here in a small community when you don't, because then it's pretty evident when those bridges are burned. And so, yeah, it's just always trying to remember to be your best self and to put the best image out there. And everybody has slips and everybody has missteps, but most of the time folks are understanding. It takes a pretty big slip up, I think, to really be ousted by somebody here, because everybody has a history. Everybody's kind of related to somebody else. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it for the world, because everybody also would give you the shirt off their back and want to reach out to help you in any way possible.
Well, it's interesting. My children and I were having this conversation with my wife, my kids, last night, where there was a discussion about reputation. And we've got relatively little kids. We've got 2 first graders and a second grader, but we're in an area that is a destination area for a lot of people. My wife went through the elementary school that they're in, the middle school that they'll go to, and the high school. And because it's a destination area and a lot of people are interested in going to that school district, we were basically explaining to them that you're going to see a lot of these people throughout your entire life, and your reputation is one of those things that's very, very difficult to repair once it's damaged. And so telling the truth is important. The golden rule, treating others as you would want to be treated, is very important. And so it happens in a larger metropolitan area as well as obviously a smaller community. And I think that those are just great tenets for successful life. And it's a good segue into our question about being a mom, and both you and your husband work. Your husband's a farmer. You've got 2 kids. You've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. So how in the heck do you fit all of this in? How do you maintain success in your career, but also success in your household?
Does anybody really fit everything in that they want to fit in?
It's a trick question. So
it
I'm
really
glad
is. Yeah. I used to volunteer a lot with multiple different organizations that I still hold near and dear to my heart, but I just kind of had to go through and prioritize. And the saying isn't so great, but I had to kind of cut the fat and just say, look, is this bettering me as a person? And is somebody else able to step in and do what I'm doing fairly seamlessly? Is there another way that I can contribute to XYZ? And so I've had to forego a lot of those things that I love, knowing that someday I'm going to be able to pick them back up again. But so a lot of the volunteer stuff went out. I basically had to restructure my business where I have a basic end to the workday, where previously my broker used to joke that when she first started the business, she didn't know whether or not I ever went home. She always asked and joked if I slept under my desk, because I just was here all the time. I was here early, I stayed after hours, and I just worked. And what else was there to do, And so restructuring my business, my life basically was a big learning curve after 10 years in the business of just doing whatever I wanted to do with it when I wanted to do with it, and all of a sudden having these little people that depend on me all the time. So we just have to prioritize, life basically. Family comes first for me, family and God, of course. And, I'm pretty transparent with my clients to let them know that, it's important what they're doing with their life. And I fully support everything that my clients want to do. I treat them like their family, but at the end of the day, my kids are what's most important. And so if something comes up with them, ultimately, that's where I'm going to be setting my focus.
Well, and I really appreciate you pointing that out, because I think that a lot of us at times, when you're a real estate professional and you feel your clients first, of course, you want to be able to give amazing service, but there are times that you're just like anybody else, and you've got a scheduling mishap. Today, you were sharing that all of a sudden, as you're getting ready to record this podcast, the babysitter plans fell through, and your husband had to help out. And so you do what it takes, and it does take a village. And we've got family members that help us out a lot. The grandmas, the first year that the twins were born, would trade off. I think it was Tuesday night and maybe Thursday night, where we would actually get to have a full night's sleep because one of the grandmas was staying over at the house. It's just amazing how people help you get through it all, right?
Yes, that would be amazing though. My goodness. I don't know the last time I've slept through a night.
And it's coming soon. I will tell you that once you get to that elementary school age or even preschool age, it starts to happen more and more. And so with that being, tired all the time and having all this stuff to do, I would imagine you're pretty efficient in the time that you have. And so what are the types of things that you do to start your day so that you know that you're going to be able to win the day? And what are some efficiency models that you might have from a time standpoint that really help you get your day started right?
So my kids are terrible sleepers. I have never tried to keep that quiet. They are awful at sleeping. So one of these days, I hope you're right that we're going to win at that. But right now, not so much. So I sleep till the kids won't let me sleep any longer, basically. So I start the day by one of them waking me up and basically getting them out the door. My husband takes them to the sitter and to preschool in the morning, and then it's me time. That is my time to center, to kind of organize my day, how I need to be most efficient, and just prioritize what's going to come first. And, because as a mom, you never quite know what might happen. Is somebody going to get sick today? Or, is somebody going to have a meltdown? So never know with those 3-year-olds. It gets kind of hit and miss sometimes. But so basically, I start my day by planning. BC, as Amanda put it, before kids, it would have started with exercise. And I hope to get back to that very soon, but right now it is just kind of on the back burner. So, but it used to be exercise, plan my day and get ready. So the exercise is fallen by the wayside, but definitely my time to center is in the morning to focus. And I was just rereading The Miracle Morning, which was something that you had recommended to me back a couple of years ago when we first connected. And it just is really another good motivator to remind yourself to, really set that time aside, stay on a path of basically a routine in the morning, get something going that is going to help you focus and help you steer in the right direction for the day. And once you get going, then you're just on fire. So if I don't, I can definitely tell. And then the whole day can just kind of be wasted in a hurry. So it's important to set that time aside in the mornings.
I love that. A couple of things that I love about your answer is that, one, you admit that, gosh, this is chaotic, right? I mean, it's just, and I love that you admit that you're like, look, I sleep until someone wakes me up, because honestly, you just don't know what the next day is going to be like from a sleeping standpoint. And I do remember that, where it's like, we're just sleeping until someone cries or whatever. And
yeah, some mornings it's 5, some mornings it's 6:45. You just don't know, but it's never late. I will say that.
Take it when you can get it, because you know you're never sleeping in, right? And so then the other thing that I really enjoyed hearing you respond with is kind of, here's what my life was like BC before children, like Amanda DeVito Parle will say, and she's the moderator for this panel that we're going to be doing in April, because there's a lot of stuff that changes, right? And we've spoken about this as we were prepping for the interview, and we'll talk about it in detail. But there's so many things that change, and gosh, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that. But I love the idea that you're like, look, it's just about getting everybody out of the house at first. Once everybody's out of the house, then you can kind of figure out what's important, and try to take care of those things right at the beginning of the day. Even if that beginning is really 9 o'clock, the whole point is try to get that stuff hammered out, because the afternoon and the evening is going to be kind of an adventure, especially as people get off of their school schedules, or if someone gets sick, like you said, if someone's throwing a tantrum and it's got to be taken home.
Which unfortunately happens more often than I'd like to admit, but that's life, and it's a short season of life. So we make the best of it, and we muddle through, and we hope that we come out winning on the other side.
Absolutely. So next question I have is, fortunately, we have a lot of societal technological advances that I think help working parents much more so than maybe existed 20 or 30 years ago. So do you have any go-to things that you do to outsource things that other people might have done? There's so many different apps that you can use, but what are some things that you do to make your life as a working parent more efficient?
Sure. So I try to play technical. I am not a techie kind of person at all. It kind of goes to, we don't have great phone service either in our area. So the techie kind of stuff, I'll admit when I don't have a strength, and that might be it, but I outsource my cleaning. I outsource lawn care, any of those things to get me a little extra time to do the things that are important to me. And what I think of my value is for that time of working is far more than what I'm paying those people to do those things. So those mundane tasks that I don't want to do, I wish I could find somebody to do my laundry, but otherwise I don't enjoy those things. And so I'm paying somebody, and it's the best money I've ever spent, because then I can spend that time with my kids or at my business earning more than what I'm spending.
Gosh, I will share that I felt so guilty at first hiring. You talked about lawn care. As a guy, I love to mow the lawn. I mean, I really, really enjoy it. It's actually kind of somewhat therapeutic for me, because I'm not real handy. I don't, I can't lay tile or, finish a bathroom, and I've had disasters as I've tried to do that stuff. But mowing a lawn, it's kind of like you can look back and see, okay, the lines are pretty straight and it's pretty simple, and you can, bag all the mulch and get it out. And, you just, it's real therapeutic for me. And I got to this point though, where it was taking me an hour to an hour and a half to do it. And it's every other week or every week. And it just doesn't make sense anymore. And cleaning the house is the same thing. My wife and I both grew up in families with real world money problems. And the idea of having a house cleaner is a bit, of a perk. And certainly one of those things that we kind of look at like, gosh, we don't want to appear stuck up. But the reality is they clean in ways that we're not capable of. And they're really, really good at their job. And I think if you realize that you're employing someone else to do what their calling is, they wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't their calling, right? And so that's the thing that I've really been able to wrap my arms around, is that it's not that you're lazy, it's not that you're stuck up, but you're really enabling someone to do something far better than you can, far faster than you can. The guys that mow our lawn do it in 25 minutes. It takes me an hour to an hour and a half. So.
Oh yeah, the gal who cleans our house is so efficient and so good and cleans things that I would not even touch. You know, it's like, I'm not dusting the light fixture every time, but she does, you know, and so I can tell you where my strengths aren't, and it's cleaning and it's being in the house basically. But like you said, I love to do yard work. I love working on like our flower beds and in the garden. It's like you said, therapeutic. You see an instant result, but I don't have time. And it took me a long time to say, like, I do not have time to mulch all these flower beds myself, because it's a 3-day job for me to do all of them and do it right. And it doesn't ever look like it should. And so to outsource that, you know, was a big thing. But at the end of the day, it looks a lot better. I'm able to do more in the garden with the time that I have. If I have time, and if I don't, then it's okay. So, yeah, it takes a little bit to get beyond that hump. It actually took me years of my husband convincing me that it was okay to get somebody else to clean the house. But once I did, never looked back.
It is interesting. And I think that the thing that I really appreciate is just the way that you feel when you walk into your house or you walk into your garden or lawn, and you're
Yes.
like, this looks amazing and I didn't have to do it. And there's dignity exchanged with that person that got paid to do that. And you're just like, I now can choose to spend time with my family or do whatever else. And so I think there are so many different things that we hold on to because we like them and we feel like we need to do them. But there's this busyness to life that you may have to stop doing that for a couple of years until all of a sudden your littles are now bigs and you can teach them how to do gardening and
one day coming up.
Well, as a successful realtor, one of the things that we haven't shared yet is you and I got together, became friends because we are both past honorees in this Realtor Magazine issue called 30 Under 30, which is a huge accolade at a young age. And you don't do that without some success, right? So what would your clients say that sets you apart, Rachele, that you do really well, that really sets you apart in the community?
So this was number one, the toughest question, by the way, to come up with a good answer for, because it's hard to kind of look at yourself through that lens. But if I had to guess, I would think that they would say that my honesty and integrity are both just really high, and I treat everybody like family. In some instances, my clients are my family, most oftentimes not, but I hope that they can tell no difference, because I try to do things that, you know, they might not be seeing, like little warning signs like, hey, look at this when you're looking at the house, or, you know, if it were me, this is what I would do in this scenario. So I try to really watch out for everybody. My clients really become great friends, and I hope that that's the image that I'm putting out there. But I've had folks tell me that I can be honest to a fault, that sometimes it just isn't necessarily painting me in the best light if I'm overly honest about something, or it can kind of let them know something that they maybe didn't want to know about what they were hoping would be their dream house. Like, oh guys, did you see that, you know, this roof is going to cost you $10,000 to redo or something? But just crazy examples. But I would think it would be just the feeling of family, that you're working with somebody who really cares about you.
You know, I think it's interesting, and I completely agree with your answers, that what ends up happening, I think, for a lot of people, especially as you get into bigger metropolitan areas, but this still applies if you're in a small community, everyone's worried that they're somehow going to be replaced by some app, and, you know, at some point the realtor is no longer going to be important. And I find that if you treat your business as a craft, and if you treat it like a true craftsman, there's a level of excellence that some app or some computer or whatever, some cyborg could never, ever replicate. And I look at it like real estate transactions are extremely complex. They happen very infrequently, and people need a trusted guide and advisor. And my business coach, Chris Oakley, who was on episode 5 of our podcast, loves to say that business moves at the speed of trust. And if someone can trust you, that you would make decisions just like they would, and you're their advocate and you've got their back and you're truly an agent, which is a fiduciary responsibility for them, then all of a sudden they look at it and they say, Rachel's got my back. She knows exactly what I'm looking for. And then I think you really are adding value. And that's where you get repeat business referrals, because people love, and they become your champion. They love the way that you work. So I think that's great. And if you're feeling like you're struggling, if you're listening or watching this podcast, I think if you start to work that way and say, look, I'm going to maybe in some cases forego that immediate transaction, and I kind of push someone into a deal, or feel like I'm not going to be ethical by disclosing something. I promise you there are several transactions where I've said, this doesn't feel right, and you don't seem like you're really into this particular deal. Yeah. So let's go find another one. And
it can backfire. I've had that happen before where, I took my clients aside, like, look, I feel like you're trying to talk yourself into this house, that this doesn't feel like the right match for you. And they went to somebody else who let them go ahead, and that's fine, but I wouldn't have felt right about putting them into a situation that I didn't think that they were making the right decision for. And where it's not my place to really make that decision for anybody at all. If they're not happy with what they're doing, it's hard for me to get behind that. And so it's important to kind of to reach out to those people and to let them know how much you do care. And if you lose a deal, you lose a deal, but hopefully you gain more than that. Most folks aren't that way, that they really truly do appreciate that, and want to see that you're looking out for their best interest.
I'd rather be accused of being overly honest, and I'd rather be someone that, again, as a true craftsman, that appreciates the ability to say, look, this deal's not going to end up working, than be an order taker. I think if you become an order taker and you do something that maybe you don't believe in because you feel like the client wants that, and they're not listening or valuing your advice, then you become a commodity. Basically, you are that cyborg that is just kind of doing whatever the client says go do. And it's kind of like, hey, go jump, go do that. And all of a sudden, I think that what ends up happening is your clients don't trust you when things get difficult or when the market changes. And I think that's the big thing, is if you're in a seller's market and it feels like things are flying quickly and it's like, gosh, it's difficult for people to understand what my value is. I promise you that the market will change. It always does. It has several times throughout both of our careers. And that's when people really want that honest opinion. They're going to want someone that's there to help them through when it's not super easy or super simple.
Yeah. And, it doesn't always pay off right away. When the market was bad, I was working 2 other jobs along with real estate just to make ends meet. But if I looked at my job as, well, I'm going to earn X by selling this person this house, I might have been in a different position, but that's not how I look at it. I'm there to help someone. I'm there to assist them in their dream of home ownership. And looking at people as a paycheck is not what I do. I'm there to help. I'm there to get them to that point of realization for their dream. And that's the best feeling in the world. And so to lose a client on something that, I'm not fully behind ends up being okay. That I'm able to sleep at night, and, well, if my kids let me. And, I know that I'm doing the best that I can for someone.
So we've been talking a lot about authenticity and vulnerability. And I think that what happens at times is some of that's born out of failure, right? Even if it's a temporary failure. And one of our friends, Tara Moore, she shared a quote with me that I'll share after your answer here. But what I find is that a lot of people, when they make mistakes, they kind of get bent out of shape and they call themselves a failure. And I've started to feel like failure is the F word, right? Let's stop using that word and let's talk about learning experiences. Let's talk about growth through iteration. Let's talk about calibrate, which means to make intentional adjustments as you're getting towards a desired future. So how do you manage failure? I mean, you've been successful, and most successful people are inherently standing on a mountain of failure. So how do you manage that situation of having a mistake, and how do you get through it?
Yeah, so everybody makes mistakes. We're only human, which we like to think sometimes that we're superhuman, but it happens to all of us. And I am definitely one of those sensitive people who it gets to me. It does. If I do something that was a screw up and I don't know, I messed up on a contract or something, that in my wording was just a little bit off, that somebody could take advantage of it, I feel terrible. I do. And it's something that it gets to me and it hurts, and I hurt for those clients, but I don't forget. You have to learn from it. And that's the only way to keep moving forward, is to look past that direct thing, because you've got to move on. Otherwise you're stagnant and that's it. You need to find another job. So you have to find a way to push through, but then you just can't forget it. You have to make sure that you know that this was put in your place for a reason, and there's going to be something bigger down the road that you're going to need this learning experience for, and to just keep it in the back of your mind at all times that, hey, this happened, this is what I learned, and this is how I prevent it in the future. So just finding those teaching moments in everything, but especially in failures, I think is what's most important.
Yeah, the moments where you skin your knee because you fell off your bike tend to resonate, and they sting, of course, but they resonate and you remember them. And I feel like a lot of the success is born out of failure, and you almost feel like the seeds of success are kind of strewn about in the manure of failure, if you will. And from a farming kind of concept, that makes a lot of sense, right? You know, you got to have the crap to make things grow, right?
I love it.
So here's what Tara Moore, who was on our podcast a couple of episodes ago, 2 episodes ago, shared with me literally about 20 minutes before we started recording. And she doesn't know that I'm interviewing you, and the both of you are going to be on this panel together that we're having at a real estate conference. She said, and this is a quote, "As we continue on our journey, there will be naysayers, obstacles, and even failures. But failure isn't final. It is feedback. You will strive to be better each day along your journey. Fear will dissipate as you cover that FEAR is simply failure, expected, and received." So I thought that was really cool. And that's a quote from this lady named Kathy Hill at Inspire Me Today. And so I felt like that's very apropos for what we're talking about. And you and Tara have become buddies, and I'm so excited to see you guys both in Denver. And so as we wrap up our show, there's always a question that I end our show with. And it's this concept of Dear Younger Me. It's a presentation that I've done before. And the idea is, what advice would you give to that younger version of yourself, or someone who's in their early 20s and they're looking at you and they're like, Rachel's done so much. What can I do? How can I set my life up right? And so this is the advice you wish you knew when you were 22. So out of failure, what are a couple things that you would share to a 22-year-old version of you, or someone that you're mentoring that's in their 20s, that you would say, hey, these are the things you need to remember?
Sure. So of course, everybody's going to say, work hard while you can, while you've got the time, all of that. But what I've really learned is to set boundaries. You need to be able to take time and say, you know what, I can't help you right now, but here's when I can help you. The only points of regret in my business are when I have put someone else's needs before that of my family. And you only have to do it a couple of times before you really say, well, this is not the way that I wanted this to turn out, because most oftentimes those people who don't understand and aren't willing to work with you on scheduling are just people who are going to take advantage of you in the end or move on to somebody else anyway. So it's important to respect yourself, respect your time, and make sure that you're doing business with people who you like, because you spend a lot of time with those people, and you need to make sure that you're like-minded, that you have common goals, and just help them to realize that, or realize those goals. But it's important to really make sure that you're able to prioritize your life, and the ultimate reason that you're working is to make your life for your family better, or at least it is for me. And so to be able to do that, sometimes you have to say no. I have a quote written on the wall behind my desk. You have to say no to the good to say yes to the best. That's Zig Ziglar. And it's something that I have to remind myself all the time. That is why I have it written there. I see it every day when I'm coming into the office, because I am definitely a people pleaser. I just want to say yes to everything. And you just have to realize, when you're going to be burning yourself out, and when you can say, no, I can't do that. This is how I can help in another way.
Yeah, this real estate conference that we're having in Denver on April 18th is all about how you deal with burnout. That's the main theme. And Zig Ziglar, gosh, the world was blessed to have him for when we did, and he's passed away now. But Zig has got so many little Zigisms, and I love that one, because what ends up happening is you will fill your day with a certain amount of activity if you're a productive person. And the question is it the right activity? Are you doing the things that you want? And whether you're thinking about Stephen Covey and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or any other thought leader that has graced this earth, they generally talk about, are you putting the most important things in your life first? And I think that and we all do this, and I've done this, and I can totally think back to a moment where I violated this right when the twins were born, and we got our first Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning out of the house, and my wife and I were going to go to brunch, and I was working on this big deal, and I was like, I got to do this. And and God bless my wife, she was okay with it, but it ended up damaging my relationship with my client, because I was begrudgingly communicating with them on something that was really important, instead of just saying, I simply can't talk right now. And I think with text messages and some other things, there's some boundary violations that happen more often than they did years ago. And so it was a relationship that ended up getting destroyed with this client. My wife ended up being okay with it, but you make some of those decisions enough times, and all of a sudden it erodes these personal relationships that are your family. And so you've got to be very careful about when you make the call to take that late night phone call or interrupt dinner or what have you. And so there's kind of final things on that same advice that you have. What are some little things that you do to create that appropriate boundary? One of the things I love to do is I don't use my cell phone as an alarm clock. My cell phone's downstairs. We're in a 2-story house. I have a regular alarm clock. I don't use my cell phone because I don't want to be disrupted. Once it's time to go to bed, once it's time to put everybody else to bed, the phone's going away. So what about you? What are some things you do to keep an appropriate boundary?
Well, this one is really tough.
That's why I asked the question. We didn't prep for it. Good.
Yeah, no, we didn't. So let's see. I try to make it known to my clients that, hey, this is the time between these hours of like 4:30 and about 7 that a lot of times I'm just not available, and especially coming up to planting season, which is going to be starting here soon, because it's just going to be me. My husband will be out in the fields until past dark, and I have to pick up my kids from daycare and preschool 4:35. And so after that point, my kids are right there. And if it's something that's super important, I am available, but I hope you know that you're going to be hearing some playing and screaming and laughter and everything in between on the phone in the background, and you might not get my full attention. So which is hard as an individual agent, because I'm not a team member. It's just me. Thankfully, I'm in a small office, and we all do look out for one another, that, I can say, hey, can you help me out with the showing or something to that effect if we get to that point. But a lot of times people understand. I have lost clients who aren't okay with that, that they say, you know, that they need to come first and family needs to come second, and that's just not a good fit. And so, you know, I go elsewhere from them. So that has been hard to kind of get to that point. But yeah, making sure that my clients know kind of my schedule as well. And then sometimes, you know, saying that family time is an appointment, because everybody has a different way of communication. And for some folks, it's just saying, hey, I have another appointment at that time, is all that they need to hear. And some people need more of an explanation, and that's fine. But treating me time, treating family time sometimes as appointments, and blocking out time for that in my schedule has been, has really made a big difference. It took a lot of time to learn that with my first one, but I'm getting more into a routine with that.
That is a great strategy, and it's one that I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I would have forgotten about it. But I've started to call my time at the gym an appointment. If a client's like, hey, you know, I need to talk to him, like I've got an appointment from 4 to 5 in the afternoon, or I've got an appointment from 9 to 10. Brad Allen, who's a good buddy of ours and was a 30 under 30, he was on the podcast in episode 4, and Brad has that 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, that family time. He calls it in his calendar, in his Google Calendar, child support. And everybody will laugh as they see his calendar, because they're like, child support? What? You're married. I mean, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, if I don't go do that, I will have to pay child support at some point. So that's daddy time. That's me time. And there's a fabulous book written by 2 authors, John Townsend and Henry Cloud, called Boundaries. And Boundaries is a book about personal relationships that can help you through a lot of these. If you struggle, if you're a people pleaser, like maybe both Rachele and I have been at times, and I think good servant salespeople are people pleasers. We want our clients to be happy. So I love your advice, and Boundaries is a great book to check out. I believe that leaders are readers. And so one of the books that I'm going to be giving you, Rachele, is a book called EntreLeadership, which is written by one of my mentors, Dave Ramsey. I've had a chance to meet Dave several times, and it's his playbook on how he created his business over 20 years ago. And it's a phenomenal read. So I'll send that to you. It's a book that I love giving out. So for Rachele Maczuk, this is Kyle Malnati signing off on the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. We are so appreciative of your download, and please leave us a review on iTunes or YouTube. And as I love to say, Rachele and I, we will see you around the neighborhood. Thanks, everybody. Bye.